Good evening, everybody. Željko Ivanović from the University of Osijek. I thank very much colleague Albin Širca for this opportunity not to sail, not to travel from Osijek to Ljubljana, but to be here with you through this pre-recorded YouTube video. I decided to talk about Catholic literary revival in England and Chesterton's prose works in comparison with Roman Catholicism of Hugo von Hofmannsthal dramas and the danger of anti-Semitic parts or unconscious elements that could be found explicitly or implicitly in their works. Gilbert Keith Chesterton was born to a family belonging to High Church Anglicanism, but he himself converted to Catholicism in 1922. So the novels that I'm going to deal with were written in his Anglican phase. He is considered one of the most prominent representatives of the Catholic revival, Catholic literary revival in England. Even Wikipedia has some basic information about it, and this Wikipedia article gives research works on this topic. We see that Chesterton is in the group of adults who converted to Roman Catholicism, but only one, Hilaire Belloc, was raised as Catholic. Chesterton was so important at the end of his life that Cardinal Pacelli, the future Pope at that time, felt obliged to send a letter to mourn his death. We see that he is very important. Some people in the United Kingdom want him to be proclaimed a saint. Hugo von Hofmannsthal was born to an Austrian family having Jewish roots in his male line too. However, he died as Catholic and was buried in the white habit of the Franciscan Lay Third Order. He was the man of some importance for the Franciscan Order. Franciscans were kind of his friends, idols, or models for the practice of his Roman Catholicism. Both writers shared to a greater or lesser extent their enthusiasm for Christian morality, and at the end, in the second part of life of Chesterton, Roman Catholicism. The paper aims to compare the Christian message of Chesterton's selected prose works with the Christian message of Hofmannsthal's selected plays. The main plays are the mystery play Everyman, 1911, and the morality play at the Salzburg Great World Theatre, 1922. Within the context of their private life and the surrounding social and political factors, like fin de Siècle, the First World War, Austrofascism, conservative reactions, Katholische Aktion. Although the Catholic spiritual tradition since the Second Vatican, especially the Popes John XXIII, John Paul II, and Francis now, tries to eliminate all anti-Semitic remnants from its theory and practice of belief, it is true that Catholicism, along with other Christian churches, contained anti-Semitic opinions, practices, and even prayers. Unfortunately, both Chesterton and Hofmannsthal were faced with accusations of anti-Semitism. The case with Chesterton was more profound, more serious, because in some works you can find really explicit examples of sentences or utterances that can be considered anti-Semitic. The case with Hofmannsthal is less serious, but some people say that he was denied Nobel Prize for Literature by some influential Swedish writers who felt that his big engagement for Christianity or Roman Catholicism in some works by him is indirect example of anti-Semitism. Finally, this paper aims to compare this potential to latent and manifest anti-Semitism and the arguments of Chesterton's and Hofmannsthal accusers. We start with an analysis and interpretation of the following prose works by Chesterton: The Napoleon of Notting Hill, 1904, The Man Who Was Thursday, a Nightmare, 1908, The Ball and the Cross, 1909, and The Flying Inn, 1914. We continue with the analysis and interpretation of the following dramas by Hugo von Hofmannsthal: The Tor und der Tod, 1893, Jedermann, das Spiel vom Sterben des reichen Mannes, 1911, and the Salzburg Great World Theatre, 1921. Both Chesterton and Hofmannsthal used the genres of prose fiction and dramatic fiction to compose works full of metaphysical, theological, philosophical, ethical, and religious passages, some of which could be considered as effective aphorisms too. So they both share this tendency to be very intellectual, besides trying to make some action, some story, and to engage the characters to attract the attention of the reader or of the audience. If we start with Chesterton's novel The Napoleon of Notting Hill, we see that the main topics include the idea that God created the world for fun, to start a ludistic adventure which will end as a divine comedy. The author criticizes Victorian mercantilism, materialism, pragmatism, and the belief in progress. Instead, he supports idealism, enthusiasm, and playfulness. Similarly, Hofmannsthal, to tell the truth he misses Chesterton's humor, debunks the power of money against the backdrop of eternity and in confrontation with death. The rich man from the Salzburg Festspiel cannot approach the holiness of paradise. Hofmannsthal suggests in his Jedermann that even a rich man could reach paradise through penance and insight in God's mercy. Of course, a precondition is to renounce mammon's authority in one's life. Both authors are against the priority of money in life, against obsession with money as a fetish, and there is tertium comparationis for both authors in this aspect, and we could put some philosophical works in this context of discussion, like Simmel's Philosophy of Money. In contrast to Hofmannsthal, Chesterton uses every opportunity to make many other religious and metaphysical issues a subject of discussion in his works, like fallen angels, Lucifer, eternal anarchists, archangels, having a free play for a laughing God. Jesus Christ seems to be a symbol of survival against Nietzsche's nihilism and his killing God. In his novel The Ball and the Cross, The Balls and the Cross, Chesterton seems to use the same instrument like Hofmannsthal, almatic, not automatic, but almatic. His two rival characters, Macian and Turnbull, a resolute Roman Catholic and a determined atheist, both are of Scotch origin, Macian from Highlands and Turnbull from Lowlands. They experience through encounter with the other or otherness the mutual convergence of attitudes. and 2/3 build together the sign of the cross. Is it just cross? Is it Rosicrucian symbolism? We see in the paper I'm going to elaborate on the meaning of allomatic with Hofmannsthal and Chesterton. In the paper for the journal I aim to tackle the problem of anti-Semitism, especially on the part of Chesterton. Here just one small part of problematic kind of expressions from the ball and the cross. If he had been a Jew of the pagan type, but he was a Jew of another, a much less admirable type, a Jew with a very well-sounding name. Although there are no hard tests for separating the tares and the wheat of any people, one rude but efficient guide is that the nice Jew is called Moses Salomon, and the nasty Jew is called Thornton Percy. The keeper of the curiosity shop was of the Thornton Percy branch of the chosen people. He belonged to the lost and tribes whose industrial subject is to lose themselves. It's embarrassing, it's not understandable from the context of a humorous approach to a very strange story. We follow two guys who decided to duel with swords, and they just cannot start dueling due to obstacles from the court, from the police, from all the way to the end of the story. It's the plot is kind of caricature, and why Chesterton used this kind of Jew bad association is not understandable. But this example, along other examples in his non-fiction texts and other texts, show how frequent it was for Anglicans, other Christians, Protestants, Roman Catholics to be ready, too easily ready to use offending words to offend their neighboring Jews who kind of didn't have much not so many instruments to defend themselves in public against such mild or more harsh offending attitudes by intellectuals of the highest caliber. German religion is a case where we find Wilhelm Rabe and his novel The Hunger Pastor. We find there a confrontation or antagonistic stereotyping of a German who is good, Hans Jakob Unwersch, and we have on the other side Moses Freudenstein, who is a bad Jew who converts to Roman Catholicism and is a very bad person. We have a novel by Gustav Freytag, Sollen Haben, and we have also a very bad stereotyping of the Jew Itzik Feitel, who faces collapse and disaster due to his bad character. Literature is art. Literature is medium in education, and it is very dangerous to broadcast hatred, racism, anti-Semitism. If we replaced the name Jew in this quote here by some other nationalities, then we could sense how difficult it is to hear, to listen to such or to read such passages that cannot be acceptable. On the other hand, we have Hugo von Hofmannsthal, who tried possibly to hide the Jewish origin of his ancestors, and who possibly exaggerated his Roman Catholicism, his adherence to Christian ideology, but it's a matter of a wider discussion. It should be put in context, and it should be context of his work. In my opinion, Chesterton represents a much serious case of readiness to use expressions offending for the Jews. I don't know what is the reason for that. I'm going to search on that issue a bit deeper and prepare a wider discussion on that issue in the comparative dimension, comparing Chesterton and Hofmannsthal. There is kind of English connection in the work of Hofmannsthal, and there is something in the work of Chesterton that could be really put in connection, in relation with Hofmannsthal. Hofmannsthal was a representative of conservative revolution, konservative Revolution in German, and he was one of founders of Salzburg Festspiele, and this festival had the intention to celebrate Austrian Catholic culture in the European context. We need to see the works of Hofmannsthal in a bigger picture, and we should compare this bigger picture in Austria with the bigger picture in Chesterton's England. So I hope that the final paper will be interesting in this attempt to, for the first time, establish comparative relations between Chesterton and Hofmannsthal. I know it's not very usual to compare prose works with dramas. It's not in accordance with some rules of comparative literature, but in this case we are comparing the messages of the works, tendencies to be philosophical in dramas and novels, to be theological in these genres. So I guess we have a case for something very interesting. I thank you again for your attention, and all best. Greetings from Osijek. Thank you very much.